Welcome to No More Secrets on Sunday, the podcast where silence ends and healing begins. I'm your host, Lucretia J. Ville, here to guide women on a journey of reclaiming their voice, rebuilding sacred spaces within, and thriving beyond trauma. I'm here with my co-host, Cherise Seiler, and each month we'll shatter the silence that holds us back and share stories that empower and explore tools to heal, grow, and live boldly. It's time to break free. Together, let's get started.
Welcome to No More Secrets on Sunday, where silence ends and healing begins. I am your co-host, Cherise Kyler, and I'm here with the host and the author of the book, No More Secrets on Sunday, Ms. Lucretia Ville.
What's up?
Hello, everybody.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, a quick thank you to everyone who's listened to the last podcast. We've got some great feedback, and we hope that you continue to listen. And our main goal is to help free you from any silence you feel that you've had to experience and had to force to have to deal with all these years.
Absolutely. We're diving into a new topic today. We've been kind of hinting at the topic even in our last broadcast and in our last episode. And we're going to, just dive on in today. So today we're going to dive into the conversation about charismatic leadership. So, right off the top, you might ask the question, what do you mean by charismatic leadership? Then we're going to break that down, even in this episode where you're going to understand the manipulation that can happen with regards to charismatic leadership. We have a lot to discuss here, so hopefully we get through all of it in the amount of time. If we don't, you can always visit our website to learn a little bit more about these topics, as well as learn more about the book No More Secrets on Sunday, where you can use that book as a guide on your journey to healing if you've experienced trauma, especially under the guise of faith. So let's just dive into the conversation. Cherise, I'm ready to go. Let's do it. Let's unmask, unsilence, rip apart this topic on charismatic leadership.
Let's do it. A lot of people might say, what is charismatic leadership? What does that mean? My definition of it is a person who's well with words, clever in thought and delivery. They can often be fast talkers with an adaptive personality. That's the way I see it. Very adaptive personalities, meaning no matter what location, the culture, none of that matters. Their personality adapts. Now, you may say, hey, you're just a well-rounded person. Nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. But if you use it in an abusive form with an agenda attached to it, there is something wrong with that. So that's my interpretation of charismatic leader. They are very great with words, very in tune with how to articulate, how to present things. The delivery is either clever or fun or something that's going to pull you in to get you to get comfortable, to identify, things like that.
Yeah. Would you say that they also have ability to spot out people who are vulnerable as well?
They have the radar for weakness. They're the true radar. So sometimes questions are asked to you. You think, they're asking you just regular questions like, how's your family life, whatever. A lot of times just to see if you really got anybody else to lean on. If they can pick you up to realize there's family issues that you really don't have anyone to run to, you're perfect. You're perfect. Yeah. If they can see you're vulnerable, if they can see you're sad, if they can pick out one spot in your life that they can tell you're struggling with, that is the spot that they go to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important because I think that was my experience with a charismatic leader and how that played a role in my life personally. And that brings me to like the next question of, how have you actually witnessed it in your life? That I witnessed it because I saw myself being vulnerable in that situation. And we'll talk more about that as we, go through this episode. But what about you? How have you personally witnessed charismatic leadership? You've been a part of a lot of ministries, a lot of organizations. And so I want you to share a little bit of your story and experience in that.
So the sad part about this question is I've watched charismatic leaders literally from the time I was 5 until now. And that's because of being a preacher's kid, right? I have tons of relatives that are pastors. And so they will have their, counterparts, their colleagues that I had to grow up around. I had to grow up around all these leaders and elders and bishops and whatever your title is. I've been around it my whole life. And so for me, tons of examples, so many. But one that I can point out was there was a well-known leader within this organization. And he was definitely a groomer. He would groom women, but the way he used to do it where I witnessed it was I've always watched people go to him for counseling all the time. And there was a particular lady that went to him for advice about her marriage, thinking that she can go to this person she calls her leader, because that's, her spouse was not into church and stuff like that. So it wasn't like they can go together to talk to him. So she thought she can confide in him. And he groomed her the entire time. Eventually, he convinced her to really like leave your husband. Mind you, he's fully in his marriage. He has the persona of the great husband, the great leader. But he's telling her, leave your spouse. He doesn't love you. And it dragged. So it got real crazy because I'm young, but I'm around to see this. And we will have conferences and meetings where everybody has to come together all the time. Well, he made her the church representative, which means she has to travel with him. How convenient is that?
How
Oh, now,
convenient.
so convenient. She has to travel with him. And of course, people are looking at her kind of sideways because other people know how it is. But okay. But they start kind of looking at her like the enemy. She couldn't take it anymore. Eventually, she tried to reach out to leaders above him, and they blamed her, of course. And when that got out, it got out fast, and it actually happened at the conference. It became a big thing. And he said, "Can you believe these women? They pressure us and try to." I mean, he flipped it. Oh, he flipped it, and it became one of them things where she was just devastated, and she became like very depressed, and she had to restart her whole life. And he carried on with his. You know, yeah. No one,
Wow.
his wife didn't leave. No, she's used to it. But as time went on, this same person, he started marrying his mistresses, and each mistress was like, "I'm going to be the one to do it right. You do this to me," and then it just kept happening. I think this happened all the way up until he passed away. To be honest with you, and I've met all of them. I've been around each
Wow.
one since I was a little girl. Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel?
But people
How do you
still
feel
do
like that? How do you feel like that affected you? In terms
it.
of understanding the world and understanding relationships, and just how do you feel like that affected you over time?
I feel like I was already growing up in an abusive home. So doing that and then seeing this where you're supposed to be safe, right? Because this is a spiritual covering. I just knew never to trust anybody. You can't trust anybody. And they put in my brain, you are never safe. So I've always had to be on the edge. I've never known what it was like to just relax, to just be, to just, confide in anyone. No, I got to the point where I had to get clever. And even in the institution we were in together, I displayed the same clever behavior because
Mhm.
of my trust issues. So when it came to certain questions, I made up a story to give to that person and then another one for this person because that was my way of saying, for one, I'm not letting you in. For two, if something gets back to me, I know who said it because I gave three different versions to three different people. And then that helps me pinpoint. I always had to work it out. That's how I spotted you out. But I had to learn that at like 5 when I should be just going to play and being a kid. I wasn't able to do any of that. It hit me early on because I also watched people still go to this guy for marriage counseling, and I would just be baffled. Like even as a kid, how is that? How
I,
how is
I
this the
think
person?
I think that's the scary part of it is when you with charismatic leaderships, they still operate. They can continue to operate without going noticed. It's one
Yes,
thing to just be outright, down and dirty, and people notice it right away, and they catch you on it, and they scold you, or you suffer the consequences of your actions. But then when you are charismatic about it, it's very subtle, and people don't recognize. There's a very blurred line between mentorship or leadership and the things that they actually want out of you and from you. And you having that experience and seeing that firsthand, it brings to mind where that was that woman you spoke of was me in the ministry that me and you were a part of, and being in this situation where I'm fresh into I ain't never even been a part of a ministry before, and I come in and I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to grow in this new faith that I have. And under that leadership, what I'm growing into learning is to not only depend on that person, but that person to start to depend on me. And I think that's where that blurred line starts to happen, where I couldn't figure out where my duty lied. Am I supposed to be, finding scriptures for this man because he's having trouble with his wife? Is that my
Yeah.
job as a minister? Is that my job as a layman? Like, what's my job? Because again, he doesn't. I don't know. I've never been a part of a ministry before. He knows. He knows.
You were
He don't.
fresh meat, though. You were fresh
Yes.
meat. What did we just say? They can pinpoint. Perfect example. You haven't been in this thing a long time. Cool. She's unaware of exactly what it is, what the roles are. You don't know the blurred lines. He does. Oh, he does.
Hmm.
Leader, they
And I
know.
think I think that's what's challenging when these individuals, till to this day, they'll say, it's all misconstrued. But the bottom line is, you knew. If you're calling me at work, this is what you are the pastor of the church, and you're calling me, a young 19, 20, 21 year old at work, complaining about your wife, and my whole goal is how can I find a scripture, and you're taking that in. You knew.
Abusing that portion of my zealous nature is horrible, which is exactly what was happening with you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's perfect because that takes us to one of the questions being the warning signs. How do
Mm.
you notice the warning signs? And that's right there for me. I always say when they're randomly venting to you, that alone, you might feel like, oh my God, my leader feels close to me. Let me tell you right now, hear me, people. That's not what that means. That's where it all starts. Randomly venting changes to crossing that line with personal venting. Let's keep it real. They start telling you how they ain't had none, or this person ain't come on, let's be honest. Now they're telling you, oh,
Yes.
they're a little bit, oh, she don't do this, she don't do that. You're like, okay, like why do I need to know this?
Yes.
Handle your
Exactly.
but that randomly venting, your leader is not trying to be your homie or your best friend. I'm telling you right now, that's an agenda. That's a goal.
Yes.
Shut
Yes.
that down, walk away.
Yes. I think another warning sign is what's acceptable. People, charismatic people will lean on what's acceptable to keep you in a box. What's and in our situation, what's acceptable? Can you go to another church? Can you support another bishop? Can you do certain things within the church or in the ministry? And when you start to see that they're limiting what's acceptable, that's a warning sign, and they're not going to yell it at you. They're going to casually use scripture or points of conversation and references so that you feel like it's the right thing to do. Do you agree?
Absolutely agree. I've known leaders that's taken advantage of children in a sexual nature and use scriptures while doing it. When I tell you, people use scripture in such a way to make you believe anything.
For some people who haven't experienced that in their faith, how do you see people within the just in general in the world, in corporate, at their jobs, what are the warning signs when they're in those situations, like maybe a boss or a coworker or someone of that nature, where they can take advantage of you and be charismatic in the same sense, especially if they have management over you or rule over you? What's your thoughts on that?
A lot of times they try to use leaders, especially in corporate, they'll try to use like a project or something that's a deadline and where you have to constantly work with them. And then it will become, it might be like one day out of the week, I kind of need you for a Saturday, or I need you to stay late. You have to watch for the consistency in those things. The hard part for corporate is that is literally our lifeline, right? This is how we pay our bills. This is how we feed our children. And you're caught in a space where you're like, this is very uncomfortable. I don't feel comfortable consistently having to work on this project. Not that they made a move or anything, but you're still feeling uncomfortable. That uncomfortable feeling is your sign. However, then your brain goes, I'm uncomfortable. How do I feed my kids? It took me 2 years to get this job. It took me blah, blah, blah to get this job. Then what do you do?
Exactly.
And that's the part that they do know. They know you have a family. They know you have bills. They know how hard you work to get there. How dare you just walk away? So it's like, do what we tell you to do what I tell you to do, or lose everything. And on your way out the door, I am going to tarnish your image.
How can we create systems to uh not find ourselves in that? I stutter because It's hard to do that because it's so subtle. It's so subtle. But there is ways. And how do you feel like we can create those systems in order to avoid that charismatic leader having a hold on us and having accountability for their actions? Till this day, till this day, the ministry that I was a part of, there has been no accountability for their actions.
No,
Zero.
no, none.
And I am old. I'm not going to say my age, but we're talking about a good 20
Yeah.
something years that I'm aware. I wasn't the first and I definitely wasn't the last in that
No,
situation. So
no.
imagine my span, you're talking about 20 years and and I'm still aware that this is what this there is no accountability. How can we set up a system for that? Because right now it seems like we don't have anything.
No, and that's the hard part. There's ways to create a system. Unfortunately, like in a corporate setting, right? You're supposed to be able to go to HR. Guess what? In the year of 2025, you still cannot go to HR. HR is not about to look out for you. I'm HR. This is what I actually do. And I'm going to tell you, your job is to protect the company. They're not looking out for you. So that part is hard. When it comes to spiritual leadership, that's also challenging because what we know very well. There's also a group of people that come together to cover their leader. And normally that means protect you from all your BS. We don't want other people knowing what you're doing every day. So we're going to just keep covering you and protecting you. And there's people, because it's not happening to them, right? You're automatically the enemy. The
Mm.
best way to handle that is to walk away. You just need to leave.
Yeah. I think it would be great to have, as we talk about creating a system, I think it would be great to have people like us. And I'm sure there are hundreds, probably thousands of people that are like us that have had these experience, be able to set up, people who are still in, heavily within their faith, whatever that faith may be. But, just having a council of people that says, hey, these are the limits and these are the safeguards for every ministry and every church. And we don't have that today. We have councils and board members, but they're all a part of this bigger scheme of manipulation. And so we need outside, I feel like, especially within religious organizations, there should be some type of outside interference. However, the whole idea of not, separating church and state, it becomes a problem, becomes, problematic as far as what our freedoms are within the country that we live in. But I believe that if we had a system to say, okay, these people, they know what it looks like, they know what it feels like, they can identify it, and as soon as they see it, they can call it out, and it should be questioned because they already know this is what it is. So I think going
There will
forward, if we can put, yeah, if we can put some things in place, that will help because we need something. We
something really needs to be done because, like you said, there's no accountability there to this
Mhm.
day. Because I've been with you on this journey, and I know for a fact there's no accountability there. And there has to be some type of system created, and I
Mhm.
think coming to someone like us in a safe environment where we already know what it is, you know,
Mhm.
and we can help guide others because
Right.
this isn't based on what we think happens. This is what we know. This is what we've lived. This is what we're still living. you know, to be
Yeah.
honest, because even if accountability was ever taken, they people tend to try to take you down with them in
Right.
any way, shape, or form. They still have to come up with a lie to still cover themselves on the way down while the tower's falling.
Right.
You know? And
Yeah.
a system does need to be placed for sure.
Yeah, and I think creating podcasts like this, the book, No More Secrets on Sunday, and other books that are out there that are on the same topic are kind of personal systems that we can create for ourselves, so that if we find ourselves in situations, we have some type of support to guide us away from those situations. And we're taking bold moves just making this podcast because where we come from, they don't want us to speak. They don't
Not at all.
they don't want us to talk about it. I mean, soon as this book came out, there was opposition, right
Absolutely.
away. They don't want
Absolutely.
to hear it. People don't want to accept it or, be okay with the expression of it. But that's the only way to heal. That's the only way for other people not to experience the same thing.
You have
Right.
to be honest about it. We choose healing. Okay.
Yeah.
We choose moving on and conquering these things.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
have we have healing passports.
Healing passport. Thank you. Excuse me. Stamp, please. How many stamps? Like, I don't have a lot of stamps on this healing passport. Okay. My HP is real. My healing passport is very real.
Yeah, yeah. This is a great conversation. It leads me to believe that there are just more people out here that needs to hear this and understand what they can do when they're a part of this. And that brings me to another question that we have is that, what can we put in place, those mental mechanisms that, allow us not to be susceptible to charismatic leadership? And I think I'll start that by saying, speak up. Like, don't allow your mind to keep you silent, your thoughts, your whatever your thoughts are that's saying, no, I shouldn't say anything. Speak up, because speaking up keeps you away from, they're not going to mess with you when you start talking. They're going to leave you alone. If you're not a silent person, if you're not keeping things on the route, they're not going to mess with you. You're going to be good
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
don't like for you. Even today, there's this big conversation about putting your mouth on the man or woman of God, especially in the in particular faiths, right? And allowing that to guide you and think, oh, I shouldn't say this or I shouldn't say that.
Speak up, speaking up. And you know what? It's not going to be easy. You're going to be met with all kind of opposition. You're going to be called a liar. You're going to be called attention seeker. You're going to, they're going to say that you were just lonely and you're looking for someone to blame. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many factors, but guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Do it anyway.
Allow people to just speak their truth so that they can continue their healing journey and you figure out yours.
Say it for the people in the back. Figure out yours.
Now, this is a great question for you. What? I can't wait to hear your answer to this question. But what role? I'm laughing because I just know your personality, so it's going to be great. But what role
Okay.
does empathy play in both healthy and unhealthy leadership? What role does I didn't even get the
Oh,
question
Lord have
out.
mercy.
What role does empathy play in healthy and unhealthy leadership roles? I would love to hear your thoughts and a beautiful think piece on that.
Sure. So while I'm speaking to those who might be listening or watching, I just need you to imagine next to me on either side of my head tons of exclamation points, question marks, at signs that you would normally see in a cartoon when someone's cussing. That's me right now. So just picture that while I speak. So at this point where I am in life, I have absolutely positively no empathy. I think that the moment your time comes for exposure, I hope it gobbles you up. But the only way I can see myself caring is if it was a leader who not necessarily abused their power, but um, they might have, let's say, almost crossed the line. Like you can tell if someone's just a sincere human. Like they might literally be like, I watch people do this. Is this what I'm supposed to do? Type of thing. There's no real rhyme or reason. They're just like, I don't want to lose people. This is how I grow my congregation. I don't know. Because people do that, right? They study someone else and they do the same thing, or they've seen their grandpa and their dad do it. Then they do it, and that's just a safe phase. They don't even want to be this person. That's different. You might be able to be like, hey, you don't have to do this. This is not who you are. Live your truth. Be your person.
My expected answer there. But I honestly do agree with you on that. I do think that, in those situations there it just shouldn't line up with empathy when that individual has done those things regardless and carelessly. But I do feel that vulnerability um it earns empathy. So as people become more vulnerable with who they are and they start to share and be more transparent about, this is my character, this is who I have been, and they are on a certain path to growth, I think that there is a space for empathy in that situation, but it has to start. There's no room without that vulnerability. There's no room without that transparency.
My main thing is you are either listening or watching. And if you find yourself being in this situation and you feel like you try to speak up or you're thinking of speaking up, whatever it is, we're here. We're here. That's the whole point of this. It's we've done our work individually, and then we came together. And the thing is, we know to we can lean on each other as well during whatever those moments are. But we've done the work alone, separately, in our ugly spaces that we've had to do it in. And we're doing this so that you can learn how to get through it yourself, because you might lose everybody. That's kind of how it goes. Um, but that's what we're here for.
That's what No More Secrets on Sunday is all about, allowing you to go on that journey with support. So because it is a personal journey, a lot of times you might even be in a support group, you may not even be able to get to the point where you're comfortable enough to share the details or how deep it goes for you in your situation. But that book will allow you to open yourself up, with where you can, journal, you can meditate on some of the inspiration that is in that book, some of the key understandings of how our minds and our bodies work together with regards to trauma and healing, and go on that journey. And that's why we're here to spark these conversations, not to trigger you. And I want to, make that very clear, because sometimes these conversations can get triggering, especially if you've been through them. But it's just a guide to help you, to ignite you, to get through those situations. So I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation. You can find the more podcast episodes at your wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go to the website at nomoresecrets on Sunday.com, where you can get additional resources, and join us in our community, the SOS community. We are here for you, to support you. Both myself and Sharice will be there to help you continuously build and understand how to move out of silence. We're glad you were able to join us. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share and connect with our growing community. Remember, your voice matters, and your healing is sacred, and your story has the power to inspire. Until the next time, keep shattering silence and reclaim your truth.